This first layout will be producing 5 modular frames per minute, and it is a great addition to any starter factories to get a steady flow of modular frames for your storage. And this whole layout just needs 120 iron ore per minute and 108 megawatts of power in order to function. Start with a 14x8 platform. First, start by setting up your smelter array by setting up 4 smelters in the second row between columns 1 and 4. Here we want to make sure that Mark II belts are used between the splitters and the splitters inputs are coming in from the left. And then for the outputs, we want to make sure that all the mergers over here are facing to the left for the output except the first one, which faces forward for the output. We set up all these smelters to be doing iron ingots. Next, in row 5, we are going to set up our rods constructors. We do that by creating 4 constructors in columns 1 and 4. And then our splitter manifold line for the rods is going to be in the 4th row. The first splitter for that manifold line should have its input coming in from the bottom and all the other ones coming in from the left with Mark II belts between all the splitters. We merge the first 2 constructors together into this merger right here that faces forward for the output. We do the same thing, but we mirror it this time for the next 2 constructors where the output is going to be on the 4th column's merger, and that one will be facing forward for the output. And we want to make sure that we have a Mark II belt between the merger of the smelters going into the splitters for the iron rods. We'll set all 4 constructors to be doing iron rods, except the 4th constructor will be underclocked to 50% in order to just create 7.5 iron rods per minute. Then we are going to add 3 more constructors in the 5th row for the iron plates. You'll want to extend your splitter manifold line down the back of the constructors right here. You'll want to merge the 3 constructors into a merger that will be in front of the first iron plate constructor right here with its output going forward. Set all of these to be doing iron plates, but make sure to underclock the 3rd one down to 25%. In row 8, in columns 2 to 4, we are going to add 3 constructors. These will be for the screws. And in row 7, we are going to add 1 splitter behind each one of those constructors in order to create a manifold line, making sure that the splitter behind the 3rd constructor here has its input coming in from the bottom. We also want to connect the merger that is in front of this last iron rod constructor and the splitter of the last screw constructor right here. Then we just merge all the outputs of those constructors into a merger line with its output facing to the right. Make sure that the merger's position is at the very back of that row and in the middle of the column. Set all the constructors to be doing screws and underclock the last constructor to 25% in order to produce only 10 per minute. For the reinforced iron plates, we're going to add 2 assemblers in the middle of columns 6 and 7 at the beginning of row 9. We want to make sure that the outputs are facing to the right and the inputs are coming in from the left over here. For the input of these assemblers, you'll want to set up a double manifold line. I'll be showing you how to do it once because we'll be doing it multiple times in the video. You'll want to put in your first splitter for the bottom manifold line with the inputs coming in from the right from the way I'm looking at it, or if you're looking at it from the view of the layout, it'll be coming in from the bottom just like this. Then in front of it, where you have it lined up with the merger of the screws and the second hole of the assembler, you'll put down 3 splitters, but the last one you'll want to rotate it so that the input is coming in from the left side or wherever the screws is coming in from. You'll delete the bottom 2 splitters and you'll put a conveyor lift for the entrance of that splitter and facing the bottom of it coming in from the screws right here. So the screws are going to come in up to the top manifold. You'll also then just add a Mark I lift from the other side of the splitter going into the assembler just like that. Now you'll repeat the splitter process for the second assembler. So 1 on the bottom, and at the top you'll add 3, this time making sure that the splitter entrance is facing the side where the other splitter is. So in our case right here on the right, you'll delete the bottom 2 splitters, and then you'll add your conveyor lift to go into the assembler just like that. Then all you have left to do is add your belts for the top and the bottom, and then from the splitters into the assemblers just like this. And finally, we then place a Mark II from the iron plate constructors over here into the first splitter of the first assembler. We merge the outputs into a merger that will be facing forward like this. Set the assemblers to be doing reinforced iron plates, but make sure that one of them is underclocked to 50%. We're going to add the modular frame assemblers, 3 of them, at the beginning of the 12th row, where the first assembler's second, or the right input, I should say, should be directly in the middle of the line here between columns 1 and 2. Okay, and then you'll just put the next 2 assemblers right next to the first one. You'll create your double manifold line. The top one should be going to the right, and the bottom one should be coming to the left. The first splitter of the top line here should have its input coming in from the bottom. You'll want to add a conveyor lift Mark II going down from the splitter, and then the entrance coming in from the bottom. And you'll add a Mark II belt from there into the merger of the iron rods in row 6, column 1. Put a Mark II line between the merger of the reinforced iron plates, and you'll just do a nice 90-degree turn and head straight into the first splitter of the bottom manifold line for those assemblers. For the outputs, you'll just want to merge everything together towards the right, and from here you can add a storage container and have everything stored in your storage container. Set all the assemblers to be producing modular frames, but the last one should be underclocked to 1 per minute. So 50%. The second layout produces 10 modular frames per minute and is a great way to start creating some modular frames in order to feed into other productions. This layout takes in 240 iron ore per minute and 216 megawatts of power in order to function fully. Start with a 13 by 12 platform. In the second row, we are going to create 8 total smelters. We add a manifold splitter line in row 1 behind all the smelters with a Mark III belt between all the splitters. In row 3, we are adding our mergers in front of every smelter with all the mergers facing to the left for the output except the first one in the first column. That one will be facing forward. Again, Mark III belts between all the mergers. And set all these to be producing iron ingots. Then in row 5, we are going to create our 7 iron rod constructors. And in row 4, we are adding our splitter manifold line behind every constructor. The first splitter has the input coming in from the bottom, and it'll connect using a Mark III belt to the merger that's right below in the third row. In row 6, for the first 4 constructors, we are merging all of them down to the merger right here in front of the first one. That one will be going forward with its output. The other 3 are going to the left. For the next 3 constructors, the first merger will have the output going to the right, the second one with the output going in to the front, and the third one going into the left. And Mark III belts between all mergers and splitters. Set all these to be producing iron rods. Next to the iron rod constructors, we are then going to add 5 more constructors, but this time it'll be for the iron plates. To do that, we are going to extend our splitter manifold line down all the way to the last constructor. And then we are going to add a merger in front of all the iron plates constructors and have them all have the outputs going into the right, except the last one, which will have an output going forward. Set all these to be producing iron plates and make sure that the last one is underclocked to 50%. In row 8, we are going to add our 5 screw constructors. between columns 2 and 6. And in the 7th row, we are going to add a splitter manifold line for these screws. All these splitters behind the screws constructors should be having the inputs coming in from the right, except the last one here should have its input coming in from the bottom. From here, we're going to add a Mark III belt between that splitter and the merger right below it. As for the outputs, we merge all the constructors together to the right into this last merger right here that also has its output going to the right. We are going to set all these to be producing screws. And the last one will be underclocked to 50% in order to produce 20 per minute. Then we'll tackle the reinforced iron plates. And to do this, we are going to add 3 assemblers. The first one starting at the beginning of the 8th row and the 8th column right here. We add a double manifold splitter line for the inputs underneath the assemblers. The top one should have its input coming in from the left side, and the bottom one should have its input coming in from the right side. We'll add a Mark III line between the iron plates merger right here. We're going to line it up with the bottom splitter manifold, go back twice, and then do a nice 90-degree turn into it. Then we'll add the screws. In order to do the screws nice and proper, we are going to add a Mark III conveyor lift in the middle of this foundation right here. We're going to rotate it so that it's facing towards the front. We're going to click once, and we're going to rotate the top so that it lines up with the splitter right here. We want to make sure that the arrows here are green so that shows that it's going to be coming out this way. And then finally here, we'll just add a Mark III belt going in from the lift into the splitter right here. Then we'll add a Mark III belt from the screws merger right here so that it lines up with that conveyor lift. We'll go back 2 spots and then do a proper 90-degree turn into that conveyor lift. For the outputs, we are just merging all the outputs, and all these mergers are facing to the left for the outputs. We're going to set all the assemblers to be producing reinforced iron plates, and that's it for the reinforced iron plates. The last thing we need to do is set the modular frame assemblers. To do that, we'll make sure that the first one right here starts at this corner of the start of the 11th row and the 2nd column, and that the inputs are coming in from the bottom. And then you just put 4 more assemblers for a total of 5 right next to it. You'll add a double manifold line. The top one has the input coming in from the left side like this, and the bottom one has the inputs coming in from the right. You'll add a Mark III belt between the merger of the reinforced iron plates and the splitter for the modular frames on the bottom manifold line like this. And over here, you'll want to add a Mark III lift in the middle of the first column, 10th row, making sure that it's facing at the bottom. And then you'll rotate the top so that it lines up with the top manifold splitter like this. You want to make sure that the 3 arrows are green and they're pointing towards the splitter. Then you'll add the Mark III belt going in from the lift to here, and then a Mark III belt going all the way back to the iron rod merger right here in row 6. For the outputs, we just add a merger in front of all the assemblers and then merge everything to the right, where we are going to add a storage container and just belt the last merger into the storage container. And finally, we are just going to set all the machines to be producing modular frames for a total of 10 modular frames per minute. Our third layout also produces 10 modular frames per minute, but this time it takes in 250 iron ore per minute, and it requires the cast screws and bolted frames alternate recipes. The benefit of using this layout, however, is the reduction in power needed to run the layout. Start with a 10 by 13 platform. In the 2nd row, we are going to add a total of 9 smelters, starting in the 2nd column. In the 1st row, we are going to add our splitter manifold line, with the splitters having the input coming in from the left-hand side. Make sure that you add Mark III belt between the splitters. In row 3, we add a merger in front of all the smelters. For the first 4 smelters, we are going to add the mergers so that they are facing to the left for the outputs, and we're going to belt these 4 first mergers together with a Mark III belt. For For the other 5 smelters, we are going to make sure that the merger is set so that the output is on the right-hand side instead. And we are going to set a Mark III belt between the mergers. Set all of these smelters to be producing iron ingots and underclock the last one to 50% in order to produce only 15 per minute. In row 5, we're going to add 10 constructors for the cast screws. In row 4, we are going to add a splitter manifold line, making sure that the first splitter has the input coming in from the bottom, and all the other splitters behind all the constructors for the screws has the inputs coming in from the left-hand side. They should all have Mark III belts between the splitters. Then use a Mark III belt to connect the first merger over here to that splitter. So we're going to line it up, go back 2 spaces, and then do a nice 90-degree turn into the first splitter like that. We are merging the first 3 constructors together into this merger right here that's facing forward, and the other 2 are just facing to the right. We mirror the same thing, but for the next 3 constructors. So in this case, the first merger here is the one that'll go forward, and the other 2 are going to the left to send everything into this merger right here. For the next 4 constructors, we are merging everything all the way to the right to the very last merger that'll then go forward with its output. We set all these constructors to be doing the alternate recipe of cast screws. And here there are 3 machines we need to underclock. So the constructor in the 3rd and 4th column will be underclocked to 80% each, to produce a total of 40 per minute each. The very last constructor will be underclocked to 60% in order to produce 30 per minute total. Here in the 12th column, starting in the 3rd row, we are going to add a total of 5 constructors for the iron plates. We add the splitter manifold line in the 11th column, right behind these constructors, to the left of the constructors, and making sure that all the splitters have the input coming in from the bottom, except this very first one, the input is coming in from the left. We are then going to make a Mark III belt between the last merger of the last smelter right here into the first splitter of the iron plates constructors right there. We then merge all the outputs going forward like this down into the very last constructor's merger, which also has the output going forward. We set these all to be producing iron plates and underclock the very first one in the 3rd row to 50% in order to produce 10 per minute. Then we'll tackle the reinforced iron plates. For this, we'll need to have 3 assemblers. We'll make sure that the inputs for those assemblers are coming in from the right-hand side. And make sure that the very first assembler's bottom right corner should end exactly at the end of the 9th column. The output should be exactly in the middle between the 7th and 8th row. Then you just add the other 2 assemblers behind or past it, or whatever you want to call it. For the input side here for the assemblers, on the right-hand side, we'll have a double manifold line. The bottom one here has the inputs coming in from the bottom for the splitters, and the one from the top should have its inputs coming in from the top, except the very last one here, the input is coming in from the right-hand side. For this output, what we are going to want to do is add a Mark III conveyor lift on the right-hand side and bring it down, making sure that the input for that lift is coming in from the right-hand side. We are then going to grab a Mark III belt and then bring that belt around so that it lines up in the middle of the very last column. We're going to bring it back 2 notches and then do a perfect 90-degree turn into that merger over here. And then we'll add a Mark III belt between the cast screws merger right here and this splitter for the first assembler. For the output of these assemblers, put 3 mergers, all of them having their outputs going down to the bottom. We are going to set all these to be doing reinforced iron plates. And for the modular frames, we just need to add 2 assemblers, making sure that the beginning of those assemblers start at the beginning of the 8th row, and that the second output of the first assembler lines up with this merger, and the first output of the second assembler lines up with this merger. Then all we have to do now is add a Mark III belt from each one of those mergers into the assemblers. we add a manifold splitter line at the top for the other inputs. So we just add 2 splitters with the inputs coming in from the right. And then we add a conveyor lift Mark III coming in from the bottom. And then we add a Mark III belt lining up with that merger for the reinforced iron plates, going back 2 spots and then doing a perfect 90-degree turn into that merger. For the outputs, we just merge both of these into one line, and then we add a storage container and belt the merger into that storage container. The fourth and final layout is the best self-contained layout for modular frames. It takes in 260 iron ore per minute and 100 coal per minute, and it requires the cast screws and steeled frames alternate recipes. It also only takes 240 megawatts of power, and the whole thing produces 20 modular frames per minute. Start with a 10 by 14 platform. First, we are going to start by adding 3 foundries in the second row, starting in the second column. For the inputs, we do a double manifold line. The top one has its input coming in from the left-hand side and having Mark III belts between all the splitters. And the bottom one also has the inputs coming in from the left-hand side with Mark III belts between those splitters. For the outputs, we just merge everything together. The first merger in front of the first smelter has the output going forward, and the other 2 has their outputs going to the left with Mark III belts in between. We set all of these to be producing steel ingots. We make sure to underclock the last one to 22.22% clock speed in order to produce 10 steel ingots per minute. Then in the second row, starting in the 7th column, we are going to add 7 smelters. Here we make sure that the splitter line is also coming in from the left-hand side on all the splitters, and Mark III belts are between all the splitters. And we want to line up the splitters so that they match up with the bottom splitter of the foundries. Then we'll add a Mark III line between the foundries and the splitter of the smelters. Then for the last 2 smelters, we are going to merge them together by adding a merger in front of the before last smelter over here with the output facing forward. Set all of these to be producing iron ingots, and make sure to underclock the very last one to 33.333% clock speed in order to only produce 10 per minute. In the 5th row, starting in the 3rd column, we are going to create our 4 constructors for the steel pipes. In the 4th row, we want to make sure to add the splitter manifold lines, making sure the inputs for those splitters are coming in from the left-hand side. We are then going to add a Mark III line between the merger of the steel ingots going into the first splitter of the steel pipes. And for the outputs, we are going to merge all the outputs of those constructors into a line going to the left here. So all the mergers should have their outputs going to the left and have Mark III belts going in between all of them. Set these all to be producing steel pipes, but make sure one is underclocked here to 33.333% in order to only produce 6.67 steel pipes per minute. Next to those constructors, we are going to add 4 more constructors, this time for the steel plates. For the inputs to these constructors, we are just going to add a Mark I line between the smelters behind them and the constructors. And for the outputs, we just add 4 mergers, all facing to the right-hand side for the outputs, with Mark III belts between all of them. Then set all the constructors to be producing iron plates. Next, we are going to add 4 more constructors, but this time for the cast screws. In the 4th row, we are going to add a splitter manifold line behind all of the constructors. The first splitter should have its input coming in from the bottom, and a Mark III belt should be placed between the merger of the smelters and the first splitter right here. All the other splitters will have its input coming in from the left-hand side with Mark III belts between all the splitters. For the outputs, we add mergers in front of all the constructors. All of the mergers should have the outputs be on the left-hand side, except for the very first one over here. This one, the output should be facing forward. Make sure to place a Mark III belt between all of the mergers. Make sure to set all these to be producing the alternate recipe of cast screws, and make sure that one of them is underclocked to 20% in order to only produce 10 per minute. For the reinforced iron plates, we are going to add 3 assemblers. They should all have their inputs coming in from the left-hand side and the outputs going out to the right-hand side. The first one, the very bottom, should be at the beginning of the 7th row right here. And you want to have it start at the beginning of the 12th column. Then you just put 2 more behind them. We add our double manifold line right here to the left of the assemblers. Both of them have their inputs coming in from the bottom and with Mark III belts between all the splitters. Then we just add a Mark III belt between the merger of the cast screws and the bottom splitter of the reinforced iron plates right here. Then we'll grab a conveyor lift Mark III and connect it to the merger of the iron plates. Then we're just going to make sure that it's to the very lowest height we can put it and rotate it to the right. And we're going to make sure that the arrows here are green. Then we'll just add a Mark III belt between the lift and the top splitter manifold. For the outputs, we just want to merge everything together with mergers with their outputs going forward, including the very last one right here. For the modular frames, we want to make sure to add 7 assemblers starting in the bottom of the 8th row, and the first assembler should be exactly between the middle of the first and second column, right on this line right here. Underneath the assemblers, we are going to do our double manifold lines. The top one should have its inputs going in from the left-hand side, except the very first one here should have its input coming in from the bottom, and there should be Mark III belts between all of these splitters. The bottom manifold line should have the splitters inputs coming in from the right-hand side with Mark III belts between all the splitters. Then we're going to add a Mark III conveyor lift heading down from the first splitter over here, and then rotating it so it's facing towards you, and make sure that it's a orange arrow going into the conveyor lift. Then we want to add a Mark III belt from the steel pipes merger right here going straight into the conveyor lift. Back towards the reinforced iron plates, we are going to grab a Mark III belt. We're going to line up the belt here so that it lines up with the end of this assembler. Then we're going to have the belt go around and turn just before the beginning of the column. Then you're going to go all the way down and line it up with the splitter of the first assembler, then go back 2 spaces and do a perfect 90-degree turn, just like this. I'm just going to add a storage container right here. Set these to be doing the steeled frame alternate recipes, and make sure that the last one is underclocked to 66.667% in order to only do 2 per minute. All the blueprints in this video are available on my new Patreon. You also get access to the layout save that I use to test all my layouts, and I will update that save every time there's new layouts. Link is in the description down below. Regardless if you sign up for the Patreon or not, I want to thank you for watching. If you want to help the channel, you could just like the video, leave a comment down below, let me know what type of guide you want to see. And if you haven't seen my last guide about the steel layouts, you can see that by clicking this video right here.